Hermeto Pascoal, the legendary and endlessly inventive Brazilian composer and musician who forever blurred the boundaries between genres, died at the age of 89, leaving behind one of the most expansive and imaginative legacies in the history of modern music. His passing was confirmed through a heartfelt statement shared by his family, who said that in his final moments he was surrounded by family and fellow musicians. The statement did not reveal the exact cause of his death, but those who knew Pascoal intimately have long spoken about how deeply he was connected to the people, sounds, and natural world around him. In many ways, it is fitting that his departure from this world happened in the presence of those who loved him most. As he spent his entire life seeking connection through sound, Pascoal's death marks the end of an era, not just for Brazilian music, but for global music as a whole. His story is the kind that feels almost mythical. A child born in poverty in a remote rural settlement in northeast Brazil, who taught himself music because he could not work under the harsh sun due to albinism, and who eventually rose to such dizzying heights of artistic influence that Miles Davis himself once called him the most important musician on the planet. For anyone who understands the weight of that statement, it is impossible to ignore the scale of Pascoal's contribution. Miles Davis was famously stingy with compliments, but he recognized a kindred spirit in Hermeto Pascoal, someone who not only made music, but seemed to be made of music. Someone who heard possibilities in every sound around him and refused to be contained by traditional forms, categories, or expectations. Hermeto Pascoal was born on the 22nd of June 1936 in a rural part of Lagoa de Canoa, Alagoas, Brazil. Life in that part of the country was not easy, and for most children, it was expected that they would contribute to the family's livelihood from an early age. But Pascoal's albinism meant that exposure to the sun was dangerous for him, leaving his skin painfully burned and his eyesight compromised. While other children were working in the fields, young Hermeto spent hours inside, listening to the sounds of his environment and gradually teaching himself to play instruments that came into his hands. The isolation that could have made him feel excluded instead gave him a profound intimacy with sound and space. He began to recognize the music in everything, in the creaking of doors, the whistling of the wind, the clatter of pots, and the rhythms of daily life. This early immersion in the textures of sound would become the foundation of his unique musical language. By the time he was 10 years old, Pascoal had already developed enough skill to play music at local dances and weddings. His childhood performances were not just a source of pocket money, but a glimpse of what was to come. A life dedicated to bringing people together through sound. He played forró, a popular genre of music from northeastern Brazil, as well as other regional folk styles, absorbing everything around him and constantly improvising. Unlike many musicians who specialize early, Pascoal became a multi-instrumentalist out of necessity and curiosity. He would play anything he could get his hands on: accordion, flute, saxophone, piano, and later even drums and guitars. Each instrument gave him a different voice, and he saw them as extensions of the same musical soul. In the late 1950s, Pascoal made the move to Rio de Janeiro, which at the time was the vibrant epicenter of Brazilian music. It was here that he encountered the city's thriving jazz scene, which opened a new world of improvisation and harmonic complexity. He began performing in nightclubs, and his unusual, daring style quickly got him noticed. He also joined a radio orchestra, an experience that allowed him to refine his arranging and compositional skills. The blend of traditional Brazilian folk rhythms with the free-flowing improvisational spirit of jazz was electric, and soon some of the country's biggest stars were taking note of him. Among them was Elis Regina, one of Brazil's most beloved singers, who performed with Pascoal and helped bring his sound to a wider audience. Another key collaborator was percussionist Hermeto Moreira, who became not just a musical partner, but a bridge to the international stage. Moreira accompanied Pascoal on a tour to the United States, a trip that would change the trajectory of his career forever. It was during this period that Pascoal met Miles Davis, a meeting that has since passed into musical legend. Davis, who had an uncanny ability to identify revolutionary talent, was so impressed by Pascoal's unique voice that he invited him to collaborate. The collaboration with Davis was a turning point that cemented Pascoal's reputation among the jazz elite. Yet, interestingly, Pascoal himself rejected being labeled as a jazz musician. He did not want to be boxed into any category, insisting that his music owed just as much to Brazil's deep traditions Carreño Samba, Baião, as it did to jazz. "When they think I am doing one thing, I am already doing something else," he said in an interview with Jazz World in 2022. It's very liquid. This statement perfectly encapsulated his philosophy. Music, for Pascoal, was alive and fluid, not a fixed form to be mastered and contained. One of the defining characteristics of Pascoal's career was his playful approach to sound. He famously incorporated unconventional instruments and even household objects into his work. When recording his debut album Slaves Mass for Warner Brothers in 1976, he brought live pigs into the studio, letting their grunts become part of the musical texture. To him, everything could be music if you listened carefully enough. A kettle boiling, a door closing, a bird singing outside the window. This fearless experimentation made him not only a musician, but also a sound painter, someone who used the entire world as his canvas over the course of his prolific career. Pascoal wrote more than 2,000 instrumental pieces, arranged music for countless artists, and continued recording well into his 80s. He was a restless creator, constantly searching for new sonic landscapes to explore. Even in the later years of his life, when many musicians would have slowed down, Pascoal seemed to be as productive and mischievous as ever, still performing, still composing, still surprising his audience. His death has sparked an outpouring of grief and remembrance across Brazil and the global music community. On his Instagram page, his family shared a moving message encouraging fans to honor Pascoal's memory in the most fitting way possible by making sound. "Let a single note ring from an instrument, your voice, or a kettle, and offer it to the universe," they wrote. This suggestion feels so uniquely Pascoal rather than mourning in silence. He would have wanted people to make noise, to turn their grief into music, to participate in the eternal symphony of life. Pascoal's passing invites reflection on what he truly meant to music. He was not simply a performer, not simply a composer, not simply an innovator. He was a reminder that music can exist anywhere and everywhere, that it is something living, breathing, and constantly evolving. He took the traditional and made it new. He took the ordinary and made it extraordinary. He took sound itself and made it sing for generations of musicians and listeners. He expanded the very definition of what music could be. In remembering Hermeto Pascoal, we are reminded of the power of creativity, the beauty of defying categorization, and the joy of hearing the world with fresh ears. His music will continue to resonate because it was never tied to a single moment, trend, or style. It was timeless. As fans and fellow musicians around the world pick up their instruments, boil kettles, or simply hum a note in his honor, the spirit of Hermeto Pascoal lives on, not just in recordings, but in every sound we choose to turn into music.